Hey, Tiger fans, this is Mark Fitzpatrick with Tiger Club of Kansas City. It's Tuesday, November 18th, and we had as our speaker today Mizzou J-School grad from MLB.com, Anne Rogers, who does a great job covering the Kansas City Royals. Annie, thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, look back at this season, 82 and 80. A little obviously disappointed we didn't make the playoffs. With all the injuries to the pitching, they still gave up, I think, fewer runs than they did the year before, but the hitting
They didn't score as many.
Right. They were way down on. So what was the solution? What do you
Yeah,
easy
right.
question.
Yeah, right. How did they fix it? No, yeah, it was clearly a disappointing year offensively. A great year in terms of like pitching depth stepping up. Because they were ravaged by injuries quite a bit throughout the whole year, and they had a couple of emerging pitchers who kind of solidified their spot into the future of this club. So now it's all about how do they fix the offense, and I think that's going to be a major key moving forward in this winter is how do they add a bat or two. They're going to look at the outfielders, of course, because there's quite a need out there in the corner outfields, both left and right field, and they're going to look at a utility guy who can move between infield and outfield and kind of give manager Matt Quatrero that guy who can move at different positions and be an everyday piece still in that lineup.
Are there affordable options for the Royals in free agency, or do you think they'll look for a trade?
I think there are options in free agency. I more would say that it's more likely that they look at the trade market for the guys that they want. And I say that because teams are really interested in their pitching. We just talked about that. I mean, they've got a lot of depth, and they've got really good depth. And so they need to figure out how to balance, maintaining that depth versus using it to their advantage and finding a bat that they want and need to add to their lineup.
If you would look at, I'll put you on the spot, if you look at one pitcher that they might move, who would you think it would be?
Yeah, I'm looking at kind of that tier of guys who are younger, controllable. I'm looking at Noah Cameron. I'm looking at Chris Bubich, Stephen Kolek, Ryan Berger. Those guys are going to get the interest from teams. And Cameron and Bubich are for sure. They both, Bubich still has a year of control. So he obviously was injured at the end of the year. So you can argue about his value. Cameron has a ton of value right now after the great year he had, and he's very controllable. So are the Royals wanting to part with him, though? That's the big question, because he's a big piece of their future. So it all comes down to kind of what they can get for those pitchers, and does it match up with other teams?
You talked about today 4 solid spots in the lineup: Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, Vinny, and Salvi.
Yep.
Position I want to ask you about is second base. Who is the solution next year, second base? Or are we going to bring somebody from outside?
Yeah, I think the Royals, they're focusing their search on outfielders, right? But I don't think they're going to close off second base or third base even, because Michael Garcia can move around a little bit. I don't think they'd want to move him around. He's a Gold Glove third baseman, but they have that option at least if that opens up. In terms of second base, right now they've got on the roster, they've got Michael Massey and Jonathan India and Nick Lofton too. I don't know if they'd say he's an everyday guy at this point in his career, but so they've got those options. Are they willing to bank on both of those players making improvements from 2025? That's the big question. I think if they can find an outfielder that satisfies their needs in the lineup, maybe they are a little bit more patient with Jonathan India and Michael Massey at second base down in the lineup a little bit more, because both have done some good things in the major leagues. But do they need second base to be a more formidable position offensively? That's the question that it will kind of come down to.
One last question I want to ask about Salvador Perez. Just sign an extension. Do you see less time for him at catcher to give it? It seemed like he played better when he had a little rest from catching. You see less time for him at catcher and Carter Jensen being the backup? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I'm very interested to see how this plays out in spring training and throughout the season, because as we know, you can set one plan in place and then you can rip it up pretty quickly once the season starts. I think what we've seen the trend is for Salvi is for that the workload to go down. Every season it went back up once the Royals traded Freddie Fermin last year or this past year, just because out of necessity. But Carter Jensen is a really good defensive catcher. I think they believe in him. I don't know if they will say right now that he's the everyday guy and he can be the catcher. He's going to be the best defensive catcher that they've got. I don't think they'll say that, but I do think they want to give him playing time, and that includes behind the plate. So we'll see how it all works out. I don't think they'll say publicly like Salvi's catching this many games and Carter's catching this many games, but I don't think you can go so far as to say like Carter Jensen's going to be a backup catcher. I think it's going to be more of a tandem.
Okay. Annie, thank you so much for coming out. You do a great job. Folks, make sure you follow her on MLB.com. She is awesome. Hey, next week our speaker will be Matt McMullen, who's a staff reporter for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's a lot of interesting questions, I'm sure, there. For more information on events and membership, go to kcdigerclub.com. And one last thing, we will have a watch party this week for the Mizzou-Oklahoma game. That will be at the Brooksider Bar and Grill starting at 11 a.m.